Who experiences your experiences? Buddhism's ultimate question. There's a question that stops most people when they first encounter Buddhism. It sounds simple, but it cuts to the very heart of everything. The Buddha taught no self, so there's no me? Then who's responsible? Who practices? This is precisely where the greatest misunderstanding begins. Not because the teaching is wrong, but because we're listening from one level while the Buddha is speaking from another. Let me offer you something. Before we go further, imagine you're looking at a rainbow. Simple question. Is the rainbow real? If I ask, can you see it? You'd say yes. If I ask, can you touch it? Take a piece home? You'd say, no. So which is it? Both answers are correct, depending on the level you're asking from. When we ask, who is experiencing? The answer shifts the same way. At one level, I am experiencing. At another level, there's no fixed I anywhere. Both are true. This isn't contradiction. This is two ways of seeing the same reality. And understanding this isn't just philosophical. It's the key to understanding why we suffer and how we can be free. The first level, conventional truth. Open your eyes. You see people, objects, you, me. In daily life, we need labels to function. This is table, that's chair. This is me, that's you. Without these labels, we couldn't communicate or live together. When you say I'm hungry, people understand. When you make a mistake, you take responsibility, not someone else. This is conventional truth, Samudhisaka in Pali. Reality as organized through language and social agreement. And here's what's crucial. The Buddha never denied this level. In thousands of discourses, he taught using these conventions. Keep the precepts. Who should keep them? You. Practice meditation. Who practices? You. Harmful actions lead to painful results. For whom? For the person who commits them. In Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha shows that even enlightened beings use words like I, person, world, in everyday communication. These are necessary conventions, not signs of delusion. The commentaries explain. The Buddha spoke according to worldly convention, but wasn't fooled by it. He knew these were labels, not ultimate realities. So when we ask, who is experiencing your experiences? The answer at this level is straightforward. I am experiencing. I, with my name, my history, am reading these words right now. I have memories connecting my past to present. I'll bear the consequences of what I do today. This sense of continuity is real and functional at this level. Yesterday, you made a promise. Today, you must keep it. The conventional I maintains coherence across time, linking actions to their results, creating the foundation for moral life and spiritual practice. When you practice kindness, you experience the peace that comes from it. When you harm others, you carry that weight. The conventional truth of cause and effect, of karma and responsibility, operates with profound consistency. Your actions today shape your experience tomorrow. Your habits form your character. Your intentions matter. But here's the critical point, and this is where we must be extremely careful. Using the word I at the conventional level does not mean believing in a solid, permanent self. This is the trap. When the Buddha said we can use I conventionally, he didn't mean we should cling to it, defend it, build our identity around it, or treat it as something ultimately real. Think of it this way. You can use paper money to buy things, understanding it's just paper with agreed-upon value. But if you start believing that paper is inherently valuable, if you hoard it desperately, if your entire sense of worth depends on how much you have, you've fallen into delusion. Similarly, you can use I for communication and responsibility. I will do this. I apologize. I promise. While knowing it's just a designation, not a thing. The danger comes when you start thinking, I am important. I must prove myself. I need to defend my reputation. I am better than others. I am not good enough. This is where the illusion becomes toxic. This is what the Buddha called conceit of self, asmimana. And this is what must be abandoned. So let's be absolutely clear. At the conventional level, we use I as a functional label. But we must never, even for a moment, believe that this label points to a solid, permanent entity that needs protecting, defending, or proving. The moment we do that, we've crossed from skillful convention into delusion. The moment we feel myself has been insulted, or I need to prove my worth, we're no longer using convention wisely. We're clinging to an illusion. And here's what makes this so dangerous. If you hear conventional truth allows us to say I and think it means, therefore I have a real self to defend, you've completely missed the point. You've turned wisdom into justification for ego. This is exactly what the Buddha warned against in Majjhima Nikaya. Grasping the teaching wrongly is like grabbing a snake by its tail. You get bitten. So the foundation is this. Yes, use I in daily life for communication and responsibility. But never for a second believe in it as a thing. Never use it as justification for pride, for defensiveness, for building yourself up or putting others down. The word is a tool, not a truth. It's a map, not the territory. And even while using it, you must always remember, this is just a designation for a process, nothing more. If you skip understanding this, if you hear conventional truth and think it gives you permission to believe in a solid self, you'll fall into the most dangerous misunderstanding possible. You'll use Buddhist philosophy to justify ego instead of dissolving it. This is the exact opposite of the path. The second level, ultimate truth. At the conventional level, we've established that I am experiencing is a valid and necessary statement for daily life. But we also made something absolutely clear. Using this language doesn't mean believing in a solid, permanent self. So now a deeper question arises. If we're not clinging to I as a thing, what's actually happening when experience occurs? Who or what is truly experiencing? This is where we move to the second level of understanding. Not to contradict the first level, but to see more deeply into what's actually occurring. Let's start with a simple moment. Right now, you're reading these words. At the conventional level, we say, I am reading. But let's look at what's actually happening. Light reflects into your eyes, converts to electrical signals, travels to the visual cortex, gets processed into patterns, letters, words, meaning. Understanding arises, perhaps emotional response, perhaps thoughts appearing. Now here's the question. In this entire process, where is the experiencer separate from the reading itself? You don't find a reader standing apart. You find only the process. Seeing happening, recognition happening, understanding happening, thinking happening. Each moment arising based on conditions. This is dependent origination. Everything arising based on causes and conditions, nothing existing independently. The Buddha taught about the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. He said something profound. None of these can be taken as I or mine. They're all processes, constantly changing, arising and passing based on conditions. And most critically, there is no someone standing outside these aggregates, possessing them, experiencing them. This is ultimate truth, Paramatha Sakha. When you look directly at experience, not through concepts, but at what's actually occurring, you find only processes, events arising and ceasing, causes leading to effects, no fixed entities, no permanent experiencer, just the flow of experiencing itself. When a bell rings, there is sound waves vibrating, eardrum moving, nerve signals firing, consciousness of sound, perhaps recognition. That's a bell. This entire chain is experience. But where is the hearer separate from hearing? The conventional answer says, I hear the bell. But the ultimate truth is, there is only hearing occurring. The sense of an I who hears is itself just another event in the stream, a thought that arises after the fact. In Samyutta Nikaya discourses, the Buddha repeats, when there is the I and forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of the 3 is contact. With contact as condition, feeling arises. Notice what's missing. There's no person who has the I, sees the forms. There's only I, form, consciousness, contact, feeling, perception, thought. Process after process, each conditioning the next. So when we ask, who is experiencing, the ultimate answer is, no one. There is only experiencing. Experience without an experiencer separate from it. Like the rainbow, there's the appearance, but no rainbow entity existing independently. Similarly, there's the appearance of experience, but no experiencer entity existing independently of body, senses, consciousness, and conditions. You might feel like there's a me in here experiencing, but when you search for the actual me, you find only a thought, this is me, a feeling of ownership, a sense of continuity from memory. These are all just more processes in the stream. This is why the Buddha taught not self, anatta. Not because nothing is happening, there's clearly experiencing happening, but because there's no separate permanent entity doing the experiencing. There is only the process of experiencing itself, moment after moment, arising based on conditions. And why does this matter? Because when you believe there's a solid I experiencing everything, you create fundamental division. Every experience becomes personal. This is my pain. This is my pleasure. And with that belief comes suffering. Fear of what might happen to me. Anger when I don't get what I want. But when you see clearly that there is no separate experiencer, something extraordinary happens. Pain still arises. Joy still arises. But the suffering that comes from taking it personally begins to dissolve. Experience flows through, but there's no longer someone trying to control it all, protect a self through it all. So at the ultimate level, the answer to who experiences your experiences is experiencing happens, but there's no one separate from it, doing the experiencing. There's just the flow, body, senses, consciousness, feeling, perception, thought, arising and passing based on conditions. And seeing this clearly, directly, not as philosophy, but as lived reality, is the beginning of freedom. The Buddha's skillfulness. Here's something important to understand. Nowhere in the original discourses does the Buddha explicitly say, there are two levels of truth, conventional and ultimate. The systematic teaching of two truths, Sammutisaka and Paramatthasaka, as we know it, was formalized later in the Abhidhamma and commentaries. Yet when you read the suttas carefully, you see the Buddha teaching this distinction again and again, not as a philosophical framework, but as a lived wisdom. And this itself reveals his profound skillfulness. He didn't give people a theory to believe in. He showed them how to navigate reality at different levels, depending on what was needed in that moment. In Samyutta Nikaya, a wanderer named Vacchagotta asks directly, "Is there a self?" The Buddha remains silent. "Then is there no self?" Again, silence. After Vacchagotta leaves confused, Ananda asks why. The Buddha explains, "If I'd said there is a self, I would have confirmed his eternalist view. If I'd said there is no self, I would have confirmed his nihilist view." He didn't yet have wisdom to understand the middle way. Rather than giving a simple answer that would be misunderstood, he remained silent. He waited for the person to develop the capacity to see both levels at once. In Kaccanagotta Sutta, the Buddha goes further. The world is bound by two extremes, existence and non-existence. But one who sees dependent origination clearly doesn't fall into either. He's teaching the same thing. At one level, things function, causes lead to effects, responsibilities matter. At another level, you can't find any permanent, independent entity. Both ways of seeing are valid. Both are necessary. What we see throughout the suttas is the Buddha constantly adjusting his teaching based on who he's talking to. When someone is clinging to the idea of a permanent self, he emphasizes not self and impermanence. When someone is falling into nihilism, thinking nothing matters, he emphasizes karma, responsibility, and the importance of practice. He's not contradicting himself. He's addressing the specific delusion in front of him. This is what makes the Buddha's teaching so profound. He never got trapped in a single way of speaking. He used conventional truth when it was helpful, speaking about you practicing, you keeping precepts, you experiencing the fruits of practice. But he also pointed beyond convention when people were ready, showing that ultimately, there's only process, no practitioner separate from practice. The middle way is the wisdom to use both levels skillfully. Use conventional language, fulfill conventional responsibilities, live ethically and diligently in the world. But don't mistake the conventions for ultimate reality. Don't cling to them. Don't build your suffering around them. See through them while still using them. And this is exactly what we must learn to do. Not to choose between self exists or self doesn't exist, but to live skillfully with both understandings, speaking conventionally when needed, seeing ultimately when possible, and gradually letting the wisdom of the second level transform how we live the first. Living between two realities. So how do you actually practice this? The Buddha laid out a clear path, the threefold training: virtue, concentration, and wisdom. First, sila, ethical conduct. Keep the 5 basic precepts. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't engage in sexual misconduct, don't cloud your mind with intoxicants. When you live ethically, your mind naturally becomes more peaceful. Second, samadhi, concentration. Practice meditation, mindfulness of breathing, loving kindness, any method that helps settle the mind. A scattered mind can't see clearly. Third, Panya, wisdom. This comes from studying teachings, listening to those who've walked further, contemplating deeply. Wisdom isn't information. It's seeing reality as it actually is. Once you have this foundation, begin vipassana, insight meditation. Watch your breath. The in-breath comes, peaks, fades. The out-breath begins, flows, ends. Nothing stays. Watch your thoughts. A thought arises from nowhere, peaks, fades, another appears. Watch your emotions. Irritation arises, intensifies, dissolves. This is direct observation of impermanence and not self, not as theory, but as lived experience. And here's what practice looks like in daily life. You continue using the language of self. I need to go to work. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. You maintain your obligations, care for family, contribute to your community. But internally, something has shifted. When someone criticizes you, instead of automatic contraction, there's space. You can hear it, evaluate if there's truth in it, respond appropriately, without the suffering that comes from believing myself has been diminished. When you succeed, joy can arise, but it's not sticky. You're not building an identity around it. When loss comes, there's sadness, natural grief. But underneath, there's fundamental okayness, because you're not desperately clinging to a permanent state. How do you know if you're progressing? You'll worry less, not because you don't care, but because worry doesn't have such desperate edge. You'll get angry less often, and when anger arises, it passes more quickly. You'll experience desire differently. Things you want are still there, but not wrapped up in your identity. Most importantly, you'll find yourself more capable of genuine love and compassion, because love is no longer about my needs being met. When the me focus softens, there's room to actually see others, respond to their needs, give without constantly calculating what you're getting back. The Buddha's final words are said to be, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Work out your liberation with diligence." He didn't say, "There is no you, so nothing matters." He said, "Work out your liberation." In Dhammapada, verse 279, Sabbe Dhamma Anatta, all phenomena are not self. When one sees this with wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purification. So I invite you in the days ahead to investigate directly. When a strong emotion arises, pause. Look. Can you find the one feeling? Or only the feeling itself, arising, existing, passing? This isn't meant to confuse you. It's meant to free you from the exhausting project of defending something that was never really there. And in that freedom, you might discover you're more fully alive, more genuinely present than ever before. The question, who experiences your experiences, doesn't need a final answer. It needs to be lived, explored, seen into again and again. The Buddha didn't give us a belief system. He gave us a path of investigation. And freedom lies not in reaching some intellectual conclusion, but in continuous seeing, continuous letting go, continuous opening to what's actually here.